Michael Skolnick was just 22 when his life was changed forever. One afternoon in September 2001, he collapsed while playing with his family's new puppy. At the hospital, doctors found a tiny 3mm cyst on his brain. It wasn't life-threatening. It wasn't even urgent. But the neurosurgeon assigned to his case told Michael's parents surgery was the only option. Critical. Unavoidable. It wasn't. The operation left Michael paralyzed, his memory fading, his future erased. 3 years later, at just 25, he was dead. Only then did his parents learn the truth. The surgeon had a history of malpractice, one they were never told about. Michael's story isn't just about loss. It's about a question every patient deserves to ask. Who is really treating me? Before we begin, subscribe to Medical Crime Files and turn on notifications, because stories like this could one day save your life. Michael David Skolnick was born on March 15, 1979, in Denver, Colorado. He was Patty and Dave's only child, the center of their world. From childhood, Michael showed a remarkable sense of compassion. He wasn't just the kind of kid who cared about others, he wanted to help them. That drive shaped his path. By his early 20s, Michael was already serving as an emergency medical technician. He thrived on the fast pace and responsibility of saving lives. At the same time, he was enrolled in nursing school, determined to build a career in healthcare. Friends described him as funny, kind, and curious. He had an easy smile, a strong work ethic, and a genuine love for people. His parents remember him as the kind of young man who made them proud every single day. Patty later recalled, "Michael had a light about him. He wanted to take care of people. That was his nature." At 22, Michael's future seemed limitless. But his dedication to medicine couldn't protect him from what was about to unfold in his own care. September 2001. Michael was sitting at home, playing with the family's new puppy. Then, without warning, he passed out. His parents rushed to his side, terrified. Paramedics transported him to the hospital, where doctors began testing. At first, they wondered if the seizure could have been triggered by medication Michael had been taking to help him stop smoking. But a CT scan told a different story. A small 3mm cyst on his brain. For most families, hearing the words brain cyst is terrifying. For Patty and Dave, it was overwhelming. They were desperate for answers, for reassurance, for someone to explain what this really meant. But instead of calm guidance, they were met with pressure. The neurosurgeon on the case insisted that Michael needed immediate surgery. He presented it as urgent, critical, unavoidable. Patty later said, "We didn't know what questions to ask. We trusted the doctor because we thought we had no choice." At that time, families had no access to online databases or transparency laws about doctors' malpractice records. There was no way for the Skolnicks to know that this surgeon had a troubling history. They had only fear, faith, and the authority of a doctor urging them to act. The first procedure came quickly. It was a drainage, done not in an operating room, but right in Michael's hospital room. It was meant to relieve pressure, but it was just the beginning of a nightmare. Soon after, Michael underwent a far more invasive brain surgery. During the operation, the cyst was punctured, and part of Michael's hypothalamus, a critical area of the brain, was removed. The consequences were devastating. Michael developed infections. His body weakened. He spent months in intensive care, battling one complication after another. The once strong EMT who had been saving lives was now fighting desperately for his own. He became paralyzed. His memory began to fade. Patty sat at his bedside, helpless, watching her only son slip further away. She later said, "He was still here, but he wasn't the same. He couldn't walk, he couldn't remember. He was suffering every single day." Michael's future had been shattered by a single operation. And yet, the Skolniks still didn't know the full truth about the doctor who had taken their son down this path. For nearly 3 years, Michael endured complications, infections, and repeated hospitalizations. He fought courageously, but the damage was irreversible. By 2004, his life had become a cycle of suffering. Paralyzed, robbed of his memory, his body failing him, he was a shadow of the vibrant young man he once was. And then came the most difficult moment of all. Michael looked at his parents and told them he was ready. He wanted to be taken off life support. Patty and Dave faced an impossible choice: grant their son the release he was asking for, or hold on to him in unbearable pain. With tears in their eyes, they honored his wish. On June 4, 2004, at just 25 years old, Michael Skolnik died. His father, Dave, would later reflect, "No parent should ever have to do that, but we loved him too much to let him suffer any longer." For Patty and Dave, the grief was unimaginable. But soon, grief turned into anger, because when the truth came out, they realized Michael's tragedy should never have happened. In the weeks after Michael's death, the Skolniks began searching for answers. They learned that the neurosurgeon who operated on Michael had a history of malpractice and questionable decisions, information that had never been shared with them before the surgery. Patty later said, "Had we known his history, we would have walked away. We never would have let him touch our son." That discovery lit a fire in both parents. They channeled their grief into action, determined to prevent other families from being blindsided the way they were. They began lobbying for a law that would give patients the right to know their doctor's professional histories, malpractice judgments, disciplinary records, restrictions on licenses. It was not an easy fight. The medical community resisted, arguing that such disclosures could damage reputations. But Patty and Dave pressed on. Their persistence paid off. In 2007, the Colorado legislature passed the Michael Skolnik Medical Transparency Act. For the first time in state history, doctors were legally required to report critical information about their backgrounds. Patients could finally access details about malpractice payments, disciplinary actions, and other red flags before making life-altering decisions. And in 2010, the law was expanded, broadening its requirements and cementing its role as one of the strongest transparency measures in the nation. Michael's parents had transformed their son's tragedy into a legacy of protection for countless patients. The law changed the culture of healthcare in Colorado. Patients no longer had to walk blindly into the operating theater, trusting a stranger without context. Now they could research. They could ask informed questions. They could protect themselves in ways Michael never could. Patty and Dave didn't stop with legislation. They began speaking at medical schools, hospitals, and conferences, sharing Michael's story as a case study in informed consent. Patty would often tell young doctors, "You must be honest with patients. They're trusting you with their lives. Don't take that lightly." Michael's story became a lesson for future physicians and a warning that silence and secrecy in medicine can cost lives. Michael Skolnik's life ended far too soon, but his legacy lives on, in a law that protects patients, in classrooms where his story is taught, and in the voices of his parents who refused to let him be forgotten. His collapse at home set off a series of medical choices that spiraled out of control. But out of tragedy came reform. Today, patients in Colorado can know more about the doctors who treat them. They can make informed decisions that might one day save their lives. But transparency in medicine is still a battle in Colorado and across the country. The next time you visit a doctor, remember Michael's story. Ask questions. Research their history. Demand honesty, because you have the right to know who is treating you. And now I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you love ever experienced medical negligence or felt you weren't given the full truth? Share your story in the comments below. If you found this story important, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Medical Crime Files. Because these are the stories where medicine and crime collide and the truth matters.